Jordan Edwards works as a receptionist in Ottawa. He also lives with Asperger's syndrome, which is on the autism spectrum, and a disability that he says makes him skilled at certain tasks.
Memory. I'm very good at remembering stuff. Anything that can be put in a spreadsheet and I can memorize. I like to categorize stuff. We like to put labels on stuff.
But when labels get put on a job hunter who has an intellectual disability, it can stand in the way of landing a job. Something my next two guests know a lot about and find ways around. Keenan Wellar is co-founder of LiveWorkPlay, a charity that works with people with intellectual disabilities. And Mark Wafer is Tim Hortons franchise owner from Toronto, who's known for his inclusive hiring practices. He was on All in a Day talking about them not so very long ago. He's a keynote speaker at the fundraiser for LiveWorkPlay this evening. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And welcome back to you too, Keenan.
Thanks.
I'm going to start with you, Keenan. This spring, LiveWorkPlay set out to find summer jobs for 30 students with intellectual disabilities. How did that go?
Correct. It's our second year. We started with 20 last year and moved up to 30 this year. It went very well because we learned a lot from last year, and we've worked closely with the local school board and certain teachers who are already involved in co-ops for their students, and we're just thrilled with the idea that they could have paid employment for the summer. And we sewed up 30 jobs in advance of June, and it's rocking and rolling.
What kind of jobs?
It's everything you can imagine. It's you got folks at Tim Hortons for sure, restaurants, but also office jobs, automotive industry jobs. It's just about anything you could think of. Grocery stores, unlimited ideas.
Because we've talked before on this program about sometimes it's not so much even finding employment, it's the kind of jobs that are out there that can sometimes be discouraging, sometimes be encouraging.
I would say that's been the key thing that we have learned over the past 5 years or so is to look for a fit between the individual and the environment, because skills can be learned, but if you like it loud or you like it quiet, you need to think about those things, because it's not going to work out.
Mark, when you hear about 30 jobs for students with intellectual disabilities and the process that this organization has gone through to find them, what goes through your mind when you think about that?
Well, I think finding jobs for 30 people with intellectual disabilities is actually very good. It's very hard to find work for people with any type of disability. The unemployment rate today in Canada is as high as 70% for all types of disabilities, and even higher for those who have intellectual disabilities. And employers are still afraid. There's still a great deal of fear. And because of that, employers are buying into a series of myths and misperceptions and stereotypes about what it's like to hire somebody with disability, that they're going to be sick more often, they're going to be less productive, less innovative, work in a less safe manner. And those are the stereotypes that Keenan and his team are up against when they're trying to find work in the community for people who have intellectual disabilities. And they have to say that LiveWorkPlay is one of the best in the country at finding jobs for people with intellectual disabilities.
I want to talk a little bit more about why LiveWorkPlay works so well in a moment, but even in, I think, the 2 years since we've last talked, do you notice differences having happened in the last 2 years about employers' opinions changing, about those attitudes? Are there changes happening?
Yes, they are changing. I spent so much time on this file that I would become quite disillusioned at this point had there not been any changes. When we look back 5 years, we look at where we were, we look at the attitude of government, the attitude of employers, and even here in mainstream media towards the topic of employment. It really wasn't on anybody's radar. It was a very old-fashioned way of approaching disability employment from an employer's point of view. They looked at it more of an altruistic point of view, a charity case, charity-based job.
We're doing something good for
the exactly. We're doing something good for the community, and it's changing. It's changing in a big way. And I think there's two reasons for that. One is the amount of employer engagement that's been happening, getting employers to understand the real value of it and the contribution that people with disabilities can bring into any business. There simply is not a job that a person with a disability can't do. But the other is the fact that in many sectors there's a labor shortage, and that's just going to get worse. And employers are starting to look at the disability community as a potential option to fill those jobs. And if you look across Canada today, we have over 500,000 recent graduates from the last 5 years who have a disability, who have never worked a single day, and of those, 270,000 have a post-secondary education.
But why, during a labor shortage, turn particularly to potential employees who have a disability? What is that case?
Well, if you take a look at West, for example, I mean, certainly before we had the drop in the oil price, but 2 years ago, for sure, we had businesses that were going to the Philippines and going to Mexico and paying for the foreign worker program. Very expensive program, absolutely necessary in their mind that they had to do that to get employees. But in Alberta, in Manitoba, the unemployment rate for people with disabilities is exactly the same as it is here in Ontario. We've got people with disabilities ready and educated and skilled and ready to get into the workforce, and they can't because they have a disability, because those employers will still buying into those stereotypes.
Is there, I mean, we've talked before about the economic case, why it makes business sense, for instance, just in terms of diversity, in terms of people being able to see themselves as potential clients of the companies. Keenan, has there ever been a reaction from employers who expect to pay less for people with disabilities? Is that an issue?
We have learned not to contribute to that problem, and unfortunately a lot of agencies in the disability sector actually contribute to that, and so does public policy by promoting wage subsidies, for example. It's still very popular at the federal level and provincial level. We do not use them unless it's the same as it would be for a non-disabled person. For example, there's some summer wage subsidy programs that anyone could apply for, and we will use those. So first thing is not to create that expectation that they have lesser value, and then second is to go in making sure we fully value the person, so the employer fully values the person. If they're looking for a discount, then we're not for them, and neither are the people we support.
Right.
So I think that's the most important thing.
Is that an issue you've seen as well, where the employers are expecting to pay less? Or to
It is a huge issue. Employers, for the most part, don't expect subsidized wages, but there's those who have been told or been educated by agencies over the years that is the best way to employ people with disabilities. No, absolutely not. It is wrong. Wage subsidy tends to be a job that is being created rather than a job that's being filled or a job that's being advertised. The wage subsidy will end. What happens then?
Yeah.
The person either loses a job.
Well, that's what we've seen happen, yeah.
Because all we're doing now is increasing the labor of a business. But what happens a lot, though, is that the individual continues to stay on, especially if it's an intellectual disability. They stay on, they're not paid anything, and it's called job training with no parameters.
Right.
So those types of initiatives, wage subsidies, they put us back years. We really have to stop that.
I want to thank both of you for coming in today. Congratulations on what you've both accomplished, and of course I would tell people to go to the fundraiser for LiveWorkPlay this evening, but you can't because it's already sold out, which says something right there as well. Guys, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Keenan Wellar, co-founder of LiveWorkPlay, and Mark Wafer, Tim Hortons franchise owner from Toronto, who's known for his inclusive hiring practices. I'd love to hear from employers on this, what your experiences have been with inclusive hiring of people with intellectual disabilities, what some of the challenges have been along the way when it comes to hiring. Email us allinaday@cbc.ca, or you can send us a tweet to CBC All in a Day.